Welcome everyone to another episode of the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where we're not old, but the comics are. Joining me, as always, for the merry breakdown of the old comics, are two of my oldest friends. There you go. Nice segue. We have the Professor Bud Young, and we have the 30th Crusader. How's it going, guys?
It's going. How are you?
Buenos días.
Buenos días, señor. ¿Cómo está?
Muy bien.
Très bien. All right, okay, that's as good as it gets.
Guys, before we get going, I need to get up for 2 seconds. I'm really sorry.
One eternity later.
So, we have a bevy of books for you to look at. Today, we have got 3 classics. I say classics. It's all a little bit strange. We're going to go, as always. There seems to be a bit of a lean, a Marvel lean here. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do the tie-in first, I think. So, 13th, you're up. This is Transformers #1 from September 1984. Transformers, more than meets the eye? Hell yeah, because this was supposed to be a mini-series that ended up going on for 80 issues. Go figure, right? So this book on the popular bidding website, which still isn't sponsoring us, so I'm not saying the name, is going for £45. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll talk about Transformers 1. 13th, you got the creators. You know who's who?
Who's who? That was a DC Comics thing.
Right. So the plot is by Bill Mantlo. Script is by Ralph Macchio.
Yep.
Art is by Frank Springler, who I've never heard of ever before or after. Inks by Kim, I'm Not an X-Files, DeMulder. And letters by Higgins and not Peter Parker. Colors by Nelson Yomtoy. All right, there you go. There's the credits all done. Transformers #1, 13. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thanks for listing the credits there.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Who's Who is a good book. Maybe we'll review that another time. But yeah, Transformers. So 1984, right? So at this point in time, right, like we've mentioned before on this show, when you're reading certain books, it can really transport you back in time, and not only are you just reading the story, but it's also like you're reliving that era. And in 1984, we could kind of say like, yeah, the 60s, 70s, but the 80s, just the toy explosion was just incredible. Transformers was
really. You call them Transformers the toy explosion? You're not talking Star Wars, the ones that created the whole figure tie-in?
No, I'm not.
You're giving it the Transformers?
We're going to hone in on the Transformers today because there's so many to choose from. Right? Therefore, a toy explosion, right? So when it came to the Transformers, I can remember the toys coming out. They were not cheap, even for back then.
True that.
I remember going to the toy store and I'm like, wow, that looks great. I want it. Sorry.
$50 for Optimus Prime.
If you're good and you behave for Christmas, you'll get it. But I'm like, today's February. You know, it's like, I'm not going to wait that long.
They're not even talking about Christmas that year. They're talking about the Christmas after.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, that's how long it took to save up for some of these toys. But the toys themselves, before I get into the book, were absolutely remarkable. Just the fact that they varied in size, the way that they would make it work into whether you got a Decepticon plane, or my first one was Soundwave, which I'll get into in a bit, would transform into a cassette player. For those of you that might be too young to know what that is, a cassette player actually would play back music. So, yeah. But with the book itself, right, the timing of the book is kind of fascinating, right? Because back then you had the toys coming out, the cartoon was on the way with Sunbow Productions, and then you had the comic book. And what Johnny said earlier was spot on. This was meant to be, hey, look, let's just make a comic book out of this for 4 issues. And the response to Transformers with all this going on was very, very positive. So in comic book world, they kept the comic book going. what you'll notice with issue number one, well, the price now is obviously gone up for a lot of reasons. Obviously, the better quality you get, the more it's going to be worth. But this comic now isn't as easy to find as it once was. That's definitely for sure. And if my memory serves me right, I believe the Canadian price variant, there are variants of this book, is worth a lot more money. And there's also a couple of printings. So there's a second print and a third printing.
You've also got to think this book was picked up by Marvel UK as a weekly
Correct.
book. So there's a Marvel UK #1 kicking around, which has exactly the same story in it. So.
Right. So they are variant versions of the Transformers. And if you're a fan, there's definitely a strong following of Transformers. There's no doubt about that. But for those that want to dabble into the comic book, you're going to get a lot of words here. And it does take a little while to get through this book. But you're going to notice, yeah, but you know, when you read the story, that's the one benefit, I guess, of reading the book, right? You can get a little more descriptive with it.
Well, you know why there's so many words in this book, right? It's because there's no words on the toys, so the book tells you how to play with them.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's true. And I think
it's not like Secret Wars where everybody knows that Spider-Man's the good guy and Doctor Doom's the bad guy, and they all have a shield for some daft ass reason. No, you need to know that Mirage is a good guy and Soundwave isn't.
Right. And again, the timing of everything, right? So the creators working on this book, this is brand new for them. This is completely new. And you'll notice that, like in here, Ravage, the Decepticon cat, talks. You're going to notice within the first couple of pages, you'll notice Ravage talking. Some of the Autobots are part of the Decepticons drawn in. The coloring is a little off. But the basic premise of the story is definitely intact, where you just have eons and eons ago in the Alpha Centauri system where the Autobots lived peacefully, a sentient race of mechanical beings. And then a war erupted because one of them wanted to conquer it, Megatron, obviously very famous. And the war ensued, and never heard of it. And then the war ensued, and I'm sorry?
The dude from Detroit caught a lot of bombs, right?
Not that Megatron. So
you had me there for a second.
So the war lasted for eons, and long story short, the Autobots ended on Earth with a group of Decepticons, and the war carried over on Earth. So, you know, again, for those that are a fan of the toy or a fan of the cartoon, the comic book, yeah, there's a sound wave. The comic book, you know, it is a long read, but I enjoyed it. It's particularly like the origin story, where the origin of the Transformers has pretty much remained intact. And for those that like the Generation 1, the original group of Transformer characters, I think they'll really enjoy like the War for Cybertron that's kicking around now on Netflix.
Well, it's good. I watched that, yeah.
Yeah. So the core elements of the book, the cartoon, you'll find it all on War for Cybertron, which I really, really enjoyed. But for the comic book, you know, for the serious book collector that also has dabbled into toys, Transformers is my pick. No doubt about that. It's been a very, very strong part of my life. There's no doubt about it. From all aspects, the toy, the book,
and the fact
the shows.
And the fact you still listen to cassettes.
Absolutely.
No DVD player for you. That's how old timers we are.
I do have a cassette player, and I'm very careful with how I treat those tapes.
Yeah. Just in case one of them turns into Laserbeak.
Exactly. Well, Ravage will come out and talk to me.
Well, hey, it's not the first time Ravage has gone through a bit of a metamorphosis. He was wasn't he a sand snake or something in the Transformers movie, the first one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to throw something else in here too. So when the Transformers landed on Earth, right, it's consistent, and that they eventually made contact with humans, and in this case, Bumblebee did, and the character for those that are familiar with the cartoon of Spike Witwicky, he's actually called Buster in the comic book. So there are name variations, and I think the original name was supposed to be Butch, but at the end of the day, they're like, okay, we'll make it. It'll be Buster, and then you watch the cartoon, it's like, oh, sorry, we went with Spike. So too bad.
Too bad. Uh-oh. All right. Okay, cool. So you love everything Transformers. Who's your favorite Transformer? Does it
Mine,
still Soundwave?
probably my ultimate favorite Transformer is actually Ironhide.
All right. I can see that. Grouchy, complainer. That sounds like you. Spot on. Good call.
And I'm glad that we brought that up, because Ironhide, if you, for those that are the toy fanatics, right, the original way that Ironhide transformed kind of was like into like a cannon, like it was a van and you would open it up, and it was just a weird configuration. Nothing looked humanistic about it. But in the cartoon, it was different. Same thing for Ratchet. So the artist literally drew how the toys were at that point, the original toy version. So I thought that was awesome, and you will find that in the comic book. So that brought me back down memory lane, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's the way Ironhide originally looked as the toy.
Professor, your favorite
Yes, sir.
Transformer?
I have to go with Bumblebee, because he was the he was the first one that I think I had as a kid, because he was the one that was cheap. Right, there was a couple of them that were just on cards, not like in the box.
Right.
So you could buy Bumblebee, and then there was another one that you could get. But
I think they were called mini bots, weren't they? That's
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Bumblebee was definitely my favorite.
So what do you think of Transformers #1?
For more than the comic book itself, I had a story from Tom DeFalco about how the Transformers actually came about, which was amusing to me. Was the reason that Hasbro came to Marvel for Transformers was the success they were having with G.I. Joe. And when they had the initial meeting about having this toy line turned into a comic book, they showed up with teams of lawyers, and they had to sign non-disclosure agreements because they were trying to patent the technology of the transforming cars into robots. And they sat down with a couple of the creators, and they were talking about it, and they were like, what are we signing this NDA for? And they explained it, and they were like, dude, these toys already exist. We can just they sell them down at Midtown Comics. We could just, so they actually got up and went to Midtown Comics, bought a couple of Transformers, or the Japanese ones, I think were by Tomy or something, and brought them back and showed them to the Hasbro executives, and they like ripped up the NDAs on the spot. So it was kind of funny.
I just love that. I can't say it. Proprietary technology in this. They're made out of this amazing thing called plastic. Nobody can see it.
Which it was kind of funny, because it was that, to me, that was it was kind of funny that America thought they had it done. Hasbro thought they were first doing this, and it's already been on the shelves in Japan. So
but we are all of the opinion that Transformers is better than GoBots, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I would definitely say so, but I wouldn't rule GoBots out. I think they're like my next pick for robotic beings.
GoBots were what you got when you couldn't afford Transformers.
Correct.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, no, I loved the Transformers when I was a kid. Not as big of a fan of the movies that have come out, but when I was little, those cartoons were on. They used to have G.I. Joe and Transformers on back to back, so you have to watch both of them. We used to videotape. We used to tape them on our VHSs when we were kids, so we could rewatch the episodes. I was a much bigger fan of the cartoon than I was the comic book. I don't think I ever bought the comic book. Even though I bought G.I. Joe, I never bought Transformers, which was weird. But yeah, I mean, the comic it found a huge audience, right? I mean, when I was researching it, I was like, this thing ran for 80 issues.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that. So
hey man, IDW love them.
Right.
Yeah, well, IDW, they're still publishing, aren't they?
God,
Yep.
yeah. There's more. More series of IDW Transformers than there are generations of Transformers.
I also think the Titans comics took them for a small time, but reprinted the Marvel
Well,
stories.
Well, it's funny you bring this up because Marvel UK, we had a weekly Transformer comic, and we had it was American reprints. Then sooner or later they stopped, and they got a British artist to draw them, and he drew them exactly like the toy. Like you were saying, it's like they weren't humanized in any way. Mirage had his big fender, his side fenders going on and everything. Unbelievable. It was such a change of pace. It made the book look better for mature readers, but I think for kids it probably didn't do them anything because they were used to the American style art. So sorry, Professor, I kind of interjected there a little bit.
No, that's fine. I was what did you think about the comic yourself?
Me, it's wordy. I know I'm being a little bit cynical, but it is there to tell the kids how to play with the toys. But they're doing it in a much better way than Secret Wars did, because Secret Wars made no sense whatsoever. The reason I bring Secret Wars up, it's another kind of toy series. So yeah, 13's right. You get the whole start. You get the Autobots versus Decepticons. I would think that sorry, Professor.
No, I just wanted to shout out Bill Mantlo, who
I was just about to say,
yeah, because he had his fingers in all of the toy lines and some of the ones you'll never remember. It was like Sectars and Mask and a lot of all those toy lines that had Marvel tie-ins. That was Bill Mantlo was all over that.
So you say Bill Mantlo and you automatically think of Rom. At least I did.
Yep. Oh yeah. Right. As soon as I saw the credits,
has said that GoBots comes second. He's forgotten about Rom.
Well, Rom is part human.
Oh.
So take that.
All right, fine. I tell you what, Grimlock mad.
Well, the Rom toy is absolutely. I don't know where you can find that now, but the book, awesome.
So, for us UK fans, we had the weekly book, as I said. The issue to look for if you're a UK comic book fan is issue 13th. You'll get a buzz out of this. It's 113, which is the first appearance of Death's Head.
Interessante.
And that book is selling for far more than the Transformers #1, ironically. This book, it's wordy to say the least. It's all exposition. It's the art. It's okay. It's not great. It's very Marvel formulaic art that kind of does enough to get the story across. But I agree with you, Professor. It was the cartoon. If you're into Transformers, it's the cartoon all the time.
I have a question for you guys though. So with the wordiness here, the introduction of the characters, which one's wordier, this one or Squadron Supreme?
This one.
I like how nobody asked me what my favorite Transformer was. Thanks.
Yeah, what is your favorite Transformer?
13's right when they say they were so expensive. The biggest one that my brother was in Transformers when we were kids. The biggest one he was able to purchase with pocket money was Mirage.
It was an awesome toy. There's no doubt about that.
It's a Formula One or IndyCar type thing. But for me, my favorite one is Shockwave.
Yes, love Shockwave. I could not get my hands on that toy.
Did you like I like the Dinobots. I loved Grimlock and the but that's just me.
Yeah.
Did you guys like the ones that you could connect and make a bigger Transformer?
The Combiners? Yes.
Yeah, whatever they were.
No,
Devastator's my favorite. The Constructicons.
Because you have to buy them all separately. And they were bloody expensive.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, like when at conventions, right? So I do there's a local convention to me that does books and toys. And occasionally you'll see G1, Generation 1, Transformer figures. It's all about how intact is it? Do you have all the weapons? I've seen Megatrons with no cannon, so the value goes down. But to find them intact, it is a quest. There's no doubt about it.
It is. They are crazy. They are massively popular. Even so, I mean, there's one particular issue where Shockwave destroys both the Decepticons and the Autobots, which I found particularly interesting. He created Jetfire. There you go.
Yep. I had the Jetfire toy, the original one.
How rich were you? Look at you. He's got like, look how rich he is. He's got Jetfire.
We had a lot of Transformers too, but I think that came a lot because I had two brothers and we were all the same age. So, we had 3 times as many toys.
Well, I just hate all of yous now.
The largest one I own is Tripticon, which was later on in Transformer lore. The Decepticon city that would transform and look like a giant Godzilla.
What?
Yep. I still have it.
Yeah, I never even heard of it.
He's making it up now.
No.
He's making it.
I do have Galvatron, Ultra Magnus. I had a
Can I mute him from here? Because he's like really doing my head with all. I have
well,
better.
I owned a decent amount of Transformers, but my brother was like, "Hey, I'll take care of them for you." So I don't know what happened. He must have had a war of Cybertron, and there were a lot of casualties. So I took the survivors.
All right. Okay. Cool.
I'm still not on talking terms with him because of that. Just playing. Just playing. That's a joke. I kicked his ass. So.
All fair enough. All right. Okay. So there you go. One down. Transformers. The toy revolution of the 80s, brought to you by Star Wars. I mean, Transformers. Just saying. All right. Next up is a book. This is a sentimental book for the Professor.
I have a lot of them.
Yeah, because I mean, to be fair, I looked this up and you can get it for like 99 pence.
Yeah,
which is like a book 25 or something.
So go out and get it.
No, not after reading it. So this is the Mighty Avengers number 246, written by Roger Stern, with art by Al Milgrom. Embellishers, hashtag Milgrom didn't finish the book, is Joe Sinnott and crew, which hashtag Joe Sinnott and the guy that was sitting next to him, I imagine. Letters by Jim Novak and colors by Christy Shield. But
hey,
I thought I'd stopped reading bad Marvel books when I stopped doing No Prize.
This book is not bad. It's just how you look at it. I'm going to tell you how this book affected me in my comic book collecting life.
Did it tell you how not to act at parties?
No. In fact, I actually like that party. This book was, and just to kind of take you back in 1980, whenever this book came out, was it 85? I think
this book came out in 84.
84.
Yeah.
So 1984, I was probably 13 or 14 years old, and I used to watch my little brother play Little League, and we would walk to the corner store, and they used to have a spinner rack of comic books. Now, I had read comics before, sporadically. I loved superheroes, but I never bought a comic book. But my dad used to give us a few bucks while he was coaching the Little League game, and me and my other brother, we would walk to the store. And this was the first comic book that I ever bought with my dad's money. It wasn't my money, but I bought it with my dad's money. And it was the first issue of Avengers I've ever read. I had never heard of them before.
Well, they were lucky to survive that. Wow.
Well, but if you looked at the cover, there was no other discernible real like superhero that you would recognize on that cover. There's no Captain America. There's no Iron Man. There's no Thor. So I didn't really know what I was in for. But I bought the book because I liked the cover. But then when I look back on it, this was the book that sparked the love of comics, because I would look at that issue number 246 and I would realize that there were 245 other Avengers comics that I could read. And then that's when we started branching out. My brother bought a Fantastic Four, and we realized that, wow, there was so much more story that has happened before this. And then now when I look at that story, this issue, you're right, it's bad. It's almost like every page is a subplot for something else and doesn't really have its own story, right? Because it's
the timing of it, and I'll get to that when I come to my little segment.
So it's the first part of an Eternal storyline. It's a 3-parter, but they get into it. They introduce Circe, and by the end of the book, you're in what do they call their city? I can't even remember it. But at the end of the book, they're in the Eternals city, where you see Icarus and a couple of the other Eternals. I didn't even know who the Avengers were. How am I going to know who the Eternals are? Right? So, but all of the characters in this book, the first page is Vision and Scarlet Witch meeting with President Reagan. So I was like, wow, they're meeting with the president. And I had never realized that Marvel Comics was the world outside your window. And I didn't know that it happened in the real world. And so when to see President Reagan, there talking to Vision and Scarlet Witch, and you realize this was my first exposure to the Vision. So I thought Vision was a bad guy. Because Vision was under control of Isaac, who is the Titan's computer, but we didn't know that at that point. He was just acting very strangely. He was acting more human than robot. But when this was my first exposure to Vision, so I thought, hey, he's just a red human. And then Scarlet Witch, who I thought was hot, didn't really know why she was with Vision. But then when they had the party where you met Circe, but you also met She-Hulk, and I didn't know She-Hulk was a member of the Avengers, and then but I also didn't know she was a member of the Fantastic Four, because I knew who the Fantastic Four were, and I looked and I was like, she's not a member of the Fantastic Four. How did that happen? Which made me want to read the Fantastic Four. And so then you had a first appearance of Monica Rambeau's parents.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean didn't really do anything for the Marvel Universe, but for me it was like, wow, Captain Marvel, these heroes have a family, and she was going through some torment there, or whether or not she should tell her parents that she was a superhero, which she eventually does. But I thought that I'd never seen that before, so that was new to me. So this whole book was just a revelation for me of what you could do in comics and how to involve yourself with the lives of these supporting characters, because that's all they really were. There was no main Avengers in this. It was Vision, Scarlet Witch, Star Fox. I had no idea who Star Fox was.
I bet you don't even still know who Star Fox is. he's that much a supporting character.
I didn't think at the time that he was that rapey. He's I never really thought Star Fox was that kind of a character anyway. But anyway, this is the book that I look back on and I have such sentimental value for. I have my old ratty beat up comic in the boxes up in the attic, but I also bought a mint copy of it so that I could have it for my collection. The first one that I had has my name on top of it, and it's ripped apart and the cover's off, but I still have the cover. But I read that book. I must have read that book 200 times, and it's one of my favorite Avengers comics because of the memories it brings back to me. And that's what the show is for, Johnny.
Yeah,
is for these books that we love, and to share with the fans the passion that we have for comics. And that's, you can have it for $1, but to me it's priceless.
Good. That well said. Well debated. Well done. You're absolutely right. This is about books that we like from yesteryear. So I still think it's a bad book, but that's
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. I'm not arguing with you. It's
30.
but my love for that book is based
Oh.
on the passion that I have
Yeah,
that it
good.
created in me. Really,
I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure. I'm sure I love lots of bad books. So hey ho. 13th. What do you think? Avengers 246.
What Bud just said is probably the best review all time of this specific Avengers issue I've ever heard, because it, I don't think anyone could be that thorough with this book in reviewing it. But to the professor's point, Avengers at this point in time, yeah, you're getting kind of like the newer group, right? At that point in time, you don't see too many of the original cast. And this was an era where you had Secret Wars going on, right? And they're still trying to figure out like what the hell did just happen, and here we are, and Hawkeye left us, and he's out on the West Coast. They're going to start another branch of Avengers. So there's a lot of stuff going on as far as Avengers roster is concerned at this specific point in time. And then to throw in the Eternals at this point in time, remember they had what existed for maybe 10 years ish or so.
Yep.
So not many people knew who the hell they were. I mean, this was the era of the toy explosion. Oh, the Eternals, they must live in Eternia. Bad joke. But even if you knew of the Eternals, there's no way you would have known the cast of characters for Eternal back then. But at least here they singled one out in Cersei, who is a critical part of the Eternals
and a future Avenger.
And a future Avenger herself, right? By was it what issue? By the 300s?
Yeah, by the 300, like 320 or something.
Yeah.
That run of Avengers from like 320 to about 370, that is top notch.
Yep.
That is some really good storytelling that never gets a look in because it's the same time as the big X-Men stuff. So you want to talk about good Avengers stuff? Go back then, and even then, some of that cast wasn't great because you had Cersei, Crystal, Black Knight,
Hercules,
and Black Widow was the person
team leader.
Yeah. So you're like, you can do good books with bad teams. Sorry.
Yeah, no, this issue, it pretty much is an example of that. Like, if you look at all these characters from then, to Bud's point, you're like, what is happening in here? But in today's standards, you're like, wow, all of these people in this comic book are so underappreciated. It's not even funny. Star Fox debuted with Thanos. Who talks about that? Mentor also appeared. So you have those Titans, right? And you have the Eternals. No one gave a rat's ass about the Eternals back then, but how about today?
Well, wait till the movie comes out, and then we'll see.
Right. But the books are awesome. The Kirby books, if you go back and read them. But there's a lot of to what the professor said before with the Vision and Scarlet Witch. I have never been a fan of the Vision and Scarlet Witch together. I always had, I don't know, like this weird feeling towards the Vision, and it's just so funny because remember back then, oh, it's a robot. It must be evil. They're going to take us over. They're going to rule the world. Here he is getting hacked by another robot. And you're like, oh, it's all going to come crumbling down. So then the whole Skynet thing with Terminator, robots were bad. Robots were bad. But then we have the Transformers. They're cool.
He was always getting taken over by someone. It was either some bad programming or Ultron was always around. It's like, there's only so many Vision stories that kick around, unfortunately, and they are those. Right. It's a timing thing for me in this book. I mean, the art's hodgepodge. It's worse than Transformers book, which really disappointed me because Milgram's an absolute classic artist and he's done some fantastic work. Joe Sinnott, fantastic inker, done some fantastic work. But somewhere along the line, they mailed it in. This book looks ugly. Even Cersei's costume looks ugly, and she's supposed to be hot. To say that this is a second-tier team, I'm not sure which is worse, this or Justice League Detroit.
Oh, that's fighting words.
Let me
Well,
get back to you on that because you stumped me with that. That is a very good point that you just made.
no kidding. But it's the timing. It's the timing. When
Yeah.
you think this is your first book that you've purchased, right? This is the
Yeah.
first Avengers book. You have just missed out on the return of Jessica Drew
Hmm.
and
Right.
being comatose.
Yeah.
It would be just over a year later. Jean Grey comes back in
Yeah.
Avengers. So to the professor's point, where every page seems to be a subplot of somewhere else, it's absolutely truly valid that that's the case because the Avengers is, or it used to be, the linchpin book for the Marvel universe.
Hmm. I would say they are now. Like currently, I think Avengers is the spot where they put new. Well, I don't want to say new ideas, but that's the stomping ground for what's happening in Marvel is Avengers right now.
I
Yeah.
think in this era, Avengers was a flagship book, but not the flagship book.
Oh no, the flagship book was X-Men or Spider-Man by
Yeah.
far.
Correct.
And I think you can see that by the fact that the cast of characters,
Right.
they're not going to put the A-list characters into a book that isn't selling anywhere near. But then when the point we made about the 300s, man, that book didn't sell particularly well, considering it was Explosion, the X-Men Explosion. It's still some really good storytelling. Creator-wise, let's see. So Roger Stern, yeah, he's a good writer. He knows his Avengers, but the dialogue in this really dates it. When the
I
Wasp
liked him better on Superman.
I liked him better. Yeah, he's good on Superman. But
His Avengers run was classic, though.
Yeah.
Agreed.
There's some really good Avengers book, but here the dialogue it says, "Oh, the Wasp says something along the lines of, oh, we all need to rest after that horrible Magneto." Like what? That would you describe a supervillain? That horrible Magneto. Really?
There was that C Secret Wars blurb.
Yeah, you need to need to just if you're going to be angry, be angry. I'm sure there are some swear words you can get away with Marvel, even when they were code approved. No, I think I recognise that this is a book that is your book, and you absolutely love that book, and that's totally fine. And you're absolutely right. That is what we're here for, to talk about these things. There are better Avenger books of that ilk around.
Oh yes, of course.
At least
I think the other two parts of this three-parter are better.
Really? Okay, cool. Okay, cool. All right. So we are down. We are down to the last book. So I'm afraid, guys, we have got to go, and we've got to. Where's the one that I like? It's not it. There we are. That's the one. So we are now down to the last book, which is, I'm going to keep things a little bit equal. We are going with 13th. You'll like this because it's got a 13 in it.
And Batman.
Batman 313. Now, the reason I picked this isn't very much like Bud's. This isn't the first comic I ever read. However, I had this comic when I was a kid, and the cover scared the living pants off me. There's just something about it, just Two-Face and Batman being so dark and moody. Bearing in mind, this is 70s in UK. We're still getting Batman the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you've got, on one hand, you've got Adam West doing Adam West stuff. On the other hand, you've got this doing this. Right, the two didn't mix in my head. So I used to have this comic, this comic, and what I would do is I kept it in the cupboard under the stairs because the cover scared me. And then every time I got brave, I used to go in the cupboard and pull it out and try and flick through it because the cover was that scary.
When you kept it in the cupboard, did you keep one side of the cupboard really dirty and the other side of the cupboard was really clean?
No, it was just hiding the cupboard. It was under an old portable TV that we had. somewhere along the line, we ended up with 2 copies. I think either my brother bought one or something like that. And one copy got damaged. And I was brave enough then to go and read it. So
Brave and bold. How about that?
yeah, cool. So for me, this book has that sentimental attachment. It's not very much like the Avengers book. It's not particularly fantastic. It's a straight up Two-Face story. The dialogue has some. Well, so it's written by Len Wein, art by Irv Novick, ink by Frank McLaughlin. Sorry, colors by Glynis Wen. Related, maybe. Letters, Ben Ora, and the cover. I'm going to mention the cover because it's gorgeous. Is by the fantastic Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. There you go, with my accent on and everything.
Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
There you go. He said it proper. So it's basically classic Batman 70s. The bad guy, Two-Face, lives at 222 on the second floor, apartment 2B. It's all the same old stuff. You get a complicit commissioner who just lets Batman do whatever he wants. You've got bat ropes that don't seem to be attached to any buildings and swinging away. You know, the stuff that we notice now and laugh at, but back then we were like, whoa, this is great. There's an on and off again Catwoman romance, and there's friction in there. There's friction in the household, in the Fox household. Hold on a second. Let me just think. Catwoman, friction in the Fox household, Batman swinging away. Is this not really just last month's Batman comic that I just read? Go check it out. It's the same.
What's old is new again.
Well, I will say for this book, I think the art by Irv Novick, I think Irv is one of possibly the most underrated Batman artists. Kicking. Because he had the misfortune of coming after Neil Adams and coming after Bernie Wrightson and coming after Jim Aparo. Right? Those are 3 bat gods. After Irv, you've got Don Newton, who's fantastic as well.
I think his art was reminiscent of Aparo a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. But I think where Aparo was quite stocky and muscular, Irv's was very more, it's languid, it's stretched out. And you can see that in this book. Everybody's super lean. But man, I picked this up at a comic book mart a couple of years back. It cost me all of £5.95. This book now is retailing at around $50. I couldn't find a UK one. $50 was the closest I got. The reason being, it stars this. I found this by Happy Coinkydink. It's the first appearance of Timothy Fox, who, for the current Bat fan, has just been reintroduced into Batman as potentially the guy who's going to be the Black Batman in the future State books. There you go. So, you want his first appearance, dudes? Lucas would be so pleased with me, wouldn't he, Professor? Yeah.
I wonder why they just don't create a new character instead of mining all the old supporting characters for someone else they can throw in the Batman suit.
Hey, tell that to Thor.
Same thing.
And Wolverine.
Yeah.
I think the only time they've done that successfully is probably Miles Morales.
Yeah, but I mean, that was an introduction of a brand new character. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the only time I can think where they've introduced a whole new character to take up the mantle of something like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean, even Ghost Spider's Gwen Stacy. Don't get all emotional. 13. I know I mentioned the Gwen. Sorry.
No comment.
So for this one, 13th. Do you want to have a bash at this one and see what you think? What's your thoughts on this book from July 1979?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. The cover is gorgeous, especially the Batman, the way he's drawn, just the angle of how he's walking up to Two-Face. That is just classic 70s Batman look, no doubt about it. The Two-Face is certainly predictable, but it is funny kind of reading it. I think artistically, though, the panels with Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, I actually enjoyed them a lot. And I think he did an awesome job drawing Selina out of costume, talking with Batman. So I noticed that, and then for someone who might not have the any knowledge of what's happening in this time, you're like, oh, Batman, Catwoman, okay, so she makes an appearance, okay, she's supposed to, I guess, in the Batman universe, Commissioner. So you get your typical characters, but for us now looking at this, you're like, okay, pre-crisis, is this Earth 1? Is this Earth 2? Is this, so to me, I read this as an Earth 1 story just because the way of the relationship with Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle. So the old school Earth 1 folks you could sell this with them.
Yeah.
Especially from the relationship, like Selina Kyle reformed after so many criminal activity and tussles with Batman and what have you. But here she is completely reformed and wants to start in a new life or what have you. So on that theme with Two-Face, Batman has to stop King Faraday, who also is a character that's not talked about often, has to stop King Faraday from trying to kill Two-Face. Why? Because the groundwork for Two-Face's origin is still the same even at this point in time. He's still Harvey Dent to me. He's still my friend. I know he's done bad, but I have to save him. Look, can criminals be reformed? Look at Selina Kyle. At this point in time, he was contemplating Selina Kyle. So I like that with this book. It kind of maintained that.
I think that's a great point you make. The fact that whole save Harvey Dent
Right.
ethos goes all the way back to the 70s. I know people talk about the whole how the long Halloween and Dark Victory helped kind of pave Two-Face's way in the Dark Knight, the movie, but that whole save, as well as Batman the Animated Series, but that whole save Harvey Dent goes all the way back to that, man. That's that's what's that, 21, that's 41 years ago.
Yeah. Think of it this way, like when Batman has certain encounters, they leave not just him and character-wise traumatized to a point where he kind of makes a vow to himself. And that's no different with Harvey Dent. For anyone, you wanted another example, Jason Todd, right? I will never this and this and this and that again. It screwed him psychologically. Joker, man, this thing, I'm no matter what, he always tests Batman patience as to whether he's gonna actually kill the clown for once. So with Harvey Dent, it's pretty simple. Everything comes in twos, but the funny thing is here for Batman, it's also a dichotomy for him. He has to treat him in a way like he has to go after him as stop him from criminal activity, but the dichotomy is I have to save him from himself.
Yeah.
Because that's what Batman does. So I really, really enjoyed this book. And again, particularly the panels with Selina Kyle, I think that exceptional artwork. I would love to see the black and white pencil work original artboards for this one. No doubt about it. Excellent book.
Professor, I know DC's not your cup of tea.
Yeah, no, but I think a lot of these stories in the 70s are the groundwork and framework for what's happening now. And you mentioned it before. What's old is new again, really. But there were story points in this issue that I wondered personally, because I haven't memorized all the Batman stories like I've had a lot of Marvel, but when I was reading it, I was like, oh, was this the first appearance of King Faraday? Because Batman didn't know him.
He appeared in the 50s. I forget what book.
Let me check that out whilst you talk.
Okay.
If I remember.
And then I did enjoy the scene with Selina and Bruce at dinner, because then I'm sitting there going, much like what 13 already said about Earth 1 and Earth 2, because I was like, is this where the lines really start kind of bleeding together as far as what's going on in Earth 2 with Earth 1? Like they try to do the same things, and I'm just like, it was like, to me, I liked it, but I was like, how far along in the relationship were they, or was Catwoman just a villain like just a couple of issues ago, and this is a new development? And
Go
then
back and check the other issues.
yeah, I might.
To be fair, this run, these early 300s of Batman, I think they're top notch. For
Agreed.
you've got some really good issues come just before this. Coming after this, you've got the Black Spider issue, which is great.
The it's very simplistic with the world's greatest detective kind of putting two and two together, so to speak.
Yeah.
With he's got a big he stole some binary stuff and two gunshot wounds. It must be Two-Face. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that was pretty loose interpretation
to be
of the
fair,
evidence.
when it comes to Two-Face, you pretty much know where you're going.
Yeah, no,
I think that's probably the knock on him. When people say who's your favorite Batman villain, for me, Two-Face is up there. But for other people, it's like, yeah, everything's in twos.
Yeah, but I mean,
right.
but the Riddler uses riddles all the time. The Joker, yeah. I mean, I like Two-Face too, but I do love Batman's Rogues Gallery as far as just classic villains. But Two-Face was the one I had the least exposure to because he was never on the TV show.
Yeah.
So when I saw Two-Face in a comic book, I never knew that he was a Batman villain. I think the first time I ever saw Two-Face was in an issue of Justice League.
Ooh, really cool.
Yeah, but it was like post. I think it was just maybe pre-Crisis, like right before Crisis Justice League. And then I never saw him in Batman, so I didn't really know who he was. So
he's always the guy that used to scare me. Always as a kid. So whilst we were talking, King Faraday's first appearance, 13th, you said was in what?
I think it was 1950 or something-ish. I don't know what the name of the book. I don't remember.
It is Danger Trail #1 from July 1950. It was created by Robert Kaniger and Carmine Infantino.
There you go.
So there you go. But no, it's a good question because I mean, as soon as you said it, I was like, I'm sure I've seen him before. But then he's in like the later issues in the 330s where they go to Ra's al Ghul's place and the Lazarus Pit turns up and stuff. So,
but this was definitely the first issue that Batman met King Faraday.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Cool, excellent. There you go. Then, any other comments before we sign off?
Yeah, I'll say this on that Batman issue too. I liked King Faraday kind of treating Batman like a Robin. Yeah. So I kind of like that. And it's a day in the life of the Fox family, right? So this also shows you that Batman's wide cast of characters in Gotham have a life. Lucius Fox isn't just the guy that's keeping the lights on at the office. He actually has a life and a family and children.
Yeah,
so I like that.
And this subplot with the Foxes goes on for some time. It goes on. It goes well into the 330s,
right?
If not longer. So you're talking for an issue that has a gorgeous cover. Also has the starts, the subplots of lots of different stories, and also it's just I don't know. It's just a bomb. It's just a bomb.
I have a question. You guys know, was Lucius Fox the first black Batman supporting character?
I would have to probably, without Googling, I would say yes, but
prominent, yes, for sure.
Let's
and when did he first appear? Was it mid-70s?
You're full of questions today.
I expect you guys to know these things. You guys are the big Batman fans.
So we could definitely rule out Avengers 246. No doubt about that.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't in Transformers.
No, he wasn't part of the Ark expedition.
You know what? It doesn't actually. I don't think we can say for definite, but I would say that Lucius Fox was probably the most prominent American in Batman's world.
I
Definitely.
mean, think about it. You just here are the keys to Wayne Manor. You run it, as you see fit. And I'll check in with you from time to time.
And his first appearance was only 4 issues prior to this in Batman 307. I thought it's more than that's 313, is it? 6 issues. 6 issues before. He's only been around for 6.
That's
Mhm.
interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
cool.
I learned you guys something.
You learned us something. Cheers, mate. I wish I could talk proper English like what you do.
All right.
All right. Okay, guys. There you go. That's it. Your 3 books this time. There were Transformers #1, The Emotional Attached, Mighty Avengers 246, and The Scary as Hell Batman 313. What's next on the Old Timers Comic Book Show? Who knows? Let's see what happens in a month's time or so. All right. So, guys, all that's left for me to do is say thank you so much for hanging out, Professor.
Thank you, Johnny.
You're welcome. And 13, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. I suppose don't forget to check out the UCPN. So you find all your favorite podcasts and videos. Click, because this is a YouTube exclusive show on the UCPN. So don't forget to click subscribe and alert. You know what to do by now. It's YouTube, right? And then every time a new episode pops up, you'll get a little notification, and then you won't miss out. All right? Excellent. All right. So, adios, everyone.
Hasta la vista.